The first time Ethan Calloway taught me how to drive, I learned that the most dangerous thing on the road was not speed, rain, or the curve of a dark country lane. It was sitting 12 inches away from the 1 Alpha I had spent 4 years pretending not to love. The rain had started just after dinner, soft at first, then steady enough to turn our quiet Massachusetts street into a ribbon of black glass. I stood on the front porch with my learner's permit folded in my pocket, wearing a gray hoodie that suddenly felt too thin, watching the headlights of Ethan's black Mustang sweep across the driveway. He stepped out like he belonged to the storm, tall and calm, dark hair damp at the edges, pale face half lit by the porch lamp, his blue eyes unreadable in that way that always made my chest feel too small. Ryan, my older brother, came out behind me, clapping one hand on my shoulder with the easy confidence of someone who had never been afraid of growing up. "Don't panic, Noah," he said. "Ethan taught me stick shift in a parking lot when we were 16, and I only almost killed us twice." Ethan looked at him, one eyebrow raised. "You stalled twice. Very different." Ryan laughed, then gave me a little push toward the driveway. "He's the best driver I know. You'll be fine." Fine. That was the word everyone used when they did not see what was happening inside me. Fine was how I smiled when Ryan invited Ethan over for football Sundays. Fine was how I kept my eyes on my plate when Ethan leaned against our kitchen counter, talking about work, college, rent, and all the adult things that made him seem impossibly far away from me. Fine was how I had survived being 15 years old and realizing my brother's best friend had become the person my heart searched for in every room. Now I was 19, leaving for college in 3 weeks, and apparently the universe had decided my final test before adulthood was being trapped in a car with him while he taught me how not to crash. Ryan pointed at me with mock seriousness. "And don't fall in love with my best friend while he teaches you to drive." The joke hit the porch like a dropped glass. For half a second, even the rain seemed quieter. Ryan grinned because he thought it was harmless. Ethan did not grin. He only glanced at me, quick and sharp, as if the words had touched something neither of us wanted named. I forced a laugh that sounded nothing like me. "Please, I'm just trying to survive left turns." Ryan ruffled my hair and went back inside, still smiling, completely unaware that he had opened a door I had spent years holding shut. Ethan walked around to the passenger side and opened the driver's door for me. "Ready?" he asked. His voice was low, steady, familiar enough to hurt. I looked at the Mustang, at the rain sliding down the windshield, at the small enclosed space where there would be no Ryan, no kitchen noise, no safe distance between who I was and what I wanted. My fingers tightened around the keys Ethan placed in my palm. They were warm from his hand. "Yeah, I lied. I'm ready." I slid into the driver's seat and immediately forgot every rule I had studied in the manual. The inside of Ethan's Mustang was warm, dark, and too clean, with black leather seats, a faint glow from the dashboard, and the steady rhythm of rain tapping against the roof like nervous fingers. It smelled like him in a way the open air never allowed: cedarwood, cold rain, and something quiet that reminded me of winter coats pulled from a closet at the first sign of snow. I kept my eyes on the steering wheel because looking at him felt like admitting too much. Ethan closed the passenger door, and the whole world seemed to shrink to the width of the center console between us. "Seatbelt first," he said gently. I reached for it too fast, missed once, then pulled it across my chest with hands that did not feel like mine. He noticed. Of course he noticed. Ethan Calloway noticed everything. "We are not leaving the driveway until you breathe normally," he said. I gave a weak laugh. "That might take the rest of the night." "Then I hope Ryan made coffee." The corner of his mouth moved, not quite a smile, but close enough to make my pulse jump. I turned the key, and the engine came alive beneath us, low and steady, like some large animal waking under my feet. Ethan did not rush me. He walked me through the mirrors, the brake, the gas pedal, the gear shift, and the turn signal, each instruction calm enough to wrap around my panic and hold it still for a second. I tried to listen. I really did. But every time he leaned closer to point at something, his scent folded through the air, and my omega instincts reacted before my brain could stop them. I had taken my suppressants that morning, the same small white pill I had taken every day since I presented, but stress made everything unstable. I felt it first as warmth under my skin, then as a soft pressure behind my ribs, then as the terrible awareness that my own scent might be slipping loose. Vanilla and melting snow, my mother used to say when I was younger, before I learned to hide it. Sweet when calm, sharper when afraid. I cracked the window an inch. Ethan glanced at me, but did not comment. He only reached over and adjusted the vents so cool air brushed my face. The gesture was so careful that it almost hurt. Put your foot on the brake, he said. I obeyed. Now shift into drive. The car rolled forward barely 2 feet before I slammed the brake too hard and threw both of us against our seatbelts. My face burned. Sorry. I am sorry. You are learning, Ethan said. There is a difference. I stared through the windshield at the driveway, at the rain shining in the headlights, at the street beyond our mailbox that suddenly looked as wide and terrifying as a highway. Ryan makes everything look easy, I whispered before I could stop myself. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Ryan hides the hard parts better than you do. I turned my head. He was looking at me, not like a teacher, not like my brother's friend, but like he had heard something underneath the words. My throat tightened. And what do I hide? Ethan's eyes dropped briefly to my hands, clenched white around the wheel. How scared you are of needing anyone. I wanted to deny it, but the words vanished. Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, the air between us grew warmer, heavier, filled with everything I had never said. Then Ethan rested his hand lightly over mine on the steering wheel, steadying my grip without trapping it. Look at the road, Noah, he said, voice low and even. Do not look at fear. Fear always lies. I looked at the road because Ethan told me to, but all I could see was the reflection of his hand resting over mine, broad and steady, guiding without forcing, warm enough to make the rain outside feel like it belonged to another world. The Mustang crept down the driveway and rolled onto our quiet street, headlights cutting through silver sheets of water. My neighborhood had never seemed so unfamiliar. The same mailboxes, maple trees, basketball hoops, and parked pickup trucks I had passed 1,000 times now looked like obstacles placed in my path by some cruel test. Easy pressure on the gas, Ethan said. You do not need to prove anything to the engine. It already knows it is strong. I let out a shaky breath that was almost a laugh. Are all your driving lessons this poetic? Only with difficult students. I moved 6 feet without hitting anything. 7 feet, he corrected. Credit where it is due. I wanted to smile, but my chest felt too full. His hand left mine slowly, and the absence of it was worse than the touch. I kept both hands at 10 and 2 like the instructor videos said, but my fingers ached from how hard I was gripping the wheel. We drove under 20 miles per hour, barely faster than a bicycle, yet my heart raced as if we were on the interstate. Ethan watched the road, not me, which somehow made it easier to speak. Do you remember that party Ryan had before graduation? His shoulders shifted slightly. The one where half the football team tried to make grilled cheese in our kitchen at 2 in the morning? That one. My voice thinned. I had not planned to bring it up. The memory had lived in me for 3 years, carefully folded away like a letter I was too afraid to read. I got stuck in the hallway with one of Ryan's friends. Not you. Another alpha. He was not doing anything terrible. He was just too close, and I was too nervous, and I did not know how to tell him to move. Ethan's jaw tightened, just enough for me to notice. I kept my eyes forward. Then you came around the corner. You put your hand on my shoulder and said, "He is with me." That was all. You did not make a scene. You did not embarrass me. You just stood there until he left. The wipers swept back and forth, carrying the silence with them. I remember, Ethan said at last. Something in my chest gave way. I had spent years telling myself he had forgotten, that it had meant nothing to him, that I was foolish for keeping one quiet rescue polished bright in my mind until it became the beginning of every feeling I could not name. You never mentioned it, I said. Neither did you. I thought you were being nice because I was Ryan's little brother. Ethan turned his head just slightly, enough that I felt his gaze on the side of my face. Noah, I have never thought of you as just Ryan's little brother. The car drifted a little too close to the curb. Ethan did not grab the wheel. He only said, "Breathe, then correct." I breathed. I corrected. The tires found the center of the lane again. It should have felt like a victory, but all I could hear was what he had said, turning over inside me like a key finding a lock. I glanced at him for one dangerous second. His expression was controlled, but his scent had changed. Deeper now, cedarwood after rain, colder at the edges, protective in a way that made my omega instincts go terribly still. What am I then? I whispered. Ethan looked back at the road, but his voice lowered. Someone I should have kept more distance from. The streetlight ahead turned green, washing the windshield in pale color. My hands trembled again, not from fear of driving this time, but from the sudden, impossible hope blooming where fear had been. The green light changed before I moved, and a car behind us gave one short, impatient honk. I jumped so hard my foot pressed the gas too quickly, and the Mustang lurched forward with enough force to steal the air from my lungs. "Ease off," Ethan said, calm but sharper than before. I did, too fast, and the car slowed with an awkward jerk that made my cheeks burn. "Sorry," I whispered. "Do not apologize to the road," he said. "It does not care. Just correct." I nodded, but my body had stopped listening to me. The hope his words had planted in me was spreading too quickly, tangling with panic, embarrassment, and the soft, dangerous pull of his scent. Rain streaked across the windshield, turning porch lights into blurred gold stars. My hands felt damp against the steering wheel. The narrow street curved toward the old elementary school, where the parking lot sat wide and empty under buzzing lamps. That was where Ethan had planned to take me for basic turns, stop signs, and parking practice. A normal lesson. A safe lesson. But nothing felt normal now. Not with his voice still in my head, saying I was someone he should have kept more distance from. "Turn right at the next sign," he said. "Signal first. Brake gently. Look where you want the car to go." I turned on the signal, but my breathing had gone shallow again. My suppressants were failing in little cracks, not all at once, but enough that I could feel my omega scent slipping into the car, vanilla and cold sweetness, soft as snow but impossible to call back. I saw Ethan's fingers tighten once against his knee. He knew. The shame of it almost made me miss the turn. "Noah," he said, lower now. Eyes forward. "I am trying." I know. That simple answer nearly broke me. Most people heard "I am trying" and thought it meant I was making excuses. Ethan heard it and believed me. I guided the car into the school parking lot, tires whispering over wet pavement. The open space should have made me feel safer, but the emptiness only made every sound sharper, the engine humming, the wipers dragging, my breath catching, Ethan beside me saying nothing because he was giving me room to steady myself. "We will practice circles," he said after a moment. 10 miles per hour. No pressure. I gave a stiff nod and eased forward. The Mustang rolled in a slow loop around the painted lines. Once. Twice. By the third circle, my grip loosened. By the fourth, I almost believed I could do it. "Good," Ethan said. "That is it. Trust your hands." The praise landed too deeply. Warmth rose under my skin, sudden and bright, and my scent bloomed before I could stop it. Not fear this time. Not entirely. Ethan inhaled once, quiet but unmistakable, and the entire cabin changed. His alpha scent deepened in answer, cedarwood after a storm, restrained but awake. I panicked, looking at him instead of the road. The car drifted toward a row of orange cones near the far curb. "Brake, Noah." His voice stayed even. I froze. Ethan moved fast but carefully, one hand covering mine on the wheel, the other reaching for the emergency brake. The Mustang stopped with a wet hiss of tires, inches from the cones. No crash. No damage. Just silence, rain, and the terrifying realization that whatever had passed between us was no longer only in my imagination. Ethan did not let go immediately. His hand was steady over mine, but his face had gone pale in the dashboard glow. "Noah," he said softly, as if my name had become a question he was afraid to ask. I stared at our hands, then at him. "I think something is happening to me." Ethan closed his eyes for 1 second, like he was fighting a truth that had already won. When he opened them, they were darker than before. "I know," he said. "I felt it too." For a moment neither of us moved, and the whole world seemed to exist only inside the glow of the dashboard, the sweep of the windshield wipers, and the sound of rain tapping against the roof like it was trying to get in. Ethan's hand still covered mine on the steering wheel, but he was no longer teaching me how to drive. He was holding me in place, anchoring me to the present, keeping me from floating away into the strange warmth spreading beneath my skin. I swallowed hard. "Is it my suppressants?" I asked, though my voice sounded small even to me. "Did they stop working?" Ethan released my hand slowly, deliberately, as if even that small movement required control. "Maybe partly," he said. "But this is not only that." My stomach tightened. Then what is it? He looked through the rain-streaked windshield toward the empty school parking lot, jaw tense, eyes fixed on nothing. I do not want to answer that while you are scared. That should have comforted me. Instead, it frightened me more, because Ethan Calloway was the kind of person who always knew what to say. If he was choosing silence, the truth had weight. I pressed both palms against my knees and tried to breathe the way he had taught me. In for 4 counts. Hold. Out for 4. The warmth did not vanish, but it softened around the edges. Ethan watched me carefully, keeping his body turned away enough that I did not feel cornered. Even now, even with the air thick between us, he was careful. That almost hurt worse than if he had pulled away completely. Noah, he said, are you dizzy? I shook my head. No headache. No. Do you feel out of control? I thought about lying, but the rain and the dark and the truth in his eyes made lies feel useless. A little. Not because I want to do anything bad. It just feels like my body knows something before I do. Ethan closed his fingers around the edge of his seat. Not mine, not the wheel, not anything that would make me feel trapped. Then we are going somewhere safer than this parking lot. Home. The word came out too fast. His gaze flicked to me. We both imagined Ryan opening the front door, laughing at first, then stopping when he smelled Ethan on me, when he saw my face, when he understood that the joke he had made on the porch had not been a joke at all. Ethan's voice softened. Not yet. My father has an old garage 2 miles from here. It is private, warm, and there are bottled waters and a first aid kit. We can wait out the rain, and you can call Ryan when you feel steady. I should have said no. I should have insisted he take me back before one secret became 2. But my hands were still shaking, and beneath the fear was something quieter, something that trusted him so completely it scared me. Okay, I whispered. Ethan nodded once, then stepped out into the rain and came around to the driver's side. He opened my door, but did not reach for me. Can you switch seats? I nodded and climbed carefully into the passenger side while he kept his eyes on the pavement, giving me privacy even in the smallness of the car. When he settled behind the wheel, the Mustang seemed to recognize him, engine smoothing under his hands. We pulled out of the school lot slowly, headlights cutting through the wet streets. I watched his profile and passing flashes of streetlight, the strong line of his nose, the tension in his mouth, the restraint in every breath he took. Ethan, I said, barely louder than the rain. Did you really feel it too? His hands tightened on the wheel. Yes. My heart climbed into my throat. What did it feel like? For a long time, he did not answer. Then, in a voice so quiet it nearly disappeared beneath the storm, he said, like the road I had been avoiding my whole life suddenly had your name on it. The garage sat behind a closed gas station on a quiet side road, half hidden by pine trees and the silver curtain of rain. Ethan pulled the Mustang beneath the old metal awning, and the sudden absence of raindrops hammering the roof made the silence inside the car feel larger than before. A faded Callaway auto sign hung above the bay doors, swinging slightly in the wind, and for some reason the sight of his family name made everything feel more real. This was not a dream caused by stress. This was not a passing mistake I could forget by morning. Ethan had brought me somewhere that belonged to him, and I had followed because some part of me trusted him more than I trusted myself. He turned off the engine, but did not move right away. The dashboard lights dimmed, leaving his face outlined by the blue glow of the security lamp outside. I am going to open the garage, he said. Stay here until I turn on the lights. The floor gets slick when it rains. It was such a simple warning, so ordinary and careful, that my throat tightened. He stepped out, shoulders hunched against the weather, and unlocked the side door. A minute later, warm yellow light spilled across the pavement. He returned with an umbrella, opened my door, and held it above me without touching me. The space between us was no more than a foot, but it felt like a promise he was forcing himself to keep. Inside, the garage smelled like motor oil, old wood, clean soap, and faintly of Ethan, as if pieces of him had been left here over the years. There was a workbench lined with tools, a red toolbox, 2 folding chairs, a small refrigerator, and an old couch covered with a plaid blanket. It should have looked rough, but to me, it felt safer than my own bedroom. Ethan handed me a bottle of water and set a small white box on the workbench. Electrolytes. Not medicine, just something my dad keeps around for summer jobs. I nodded, grateful he explained before I had to ask. My hands were steadier now, but my scent had not fully settled. I could feel it around me, soft and exposed, like a secret written in the air. Ethan crossed the room and leaned against the opposite counter, putting as much distance between us as the garage allowed. "Better?" he asked. "A little." I sat on the edge of the couch, fingers wrapped around the cold bottle. "You are standing all the way over there like I might break." His mouth tightened. "I am standing over here because you might trust me too much right now." The answer landed quietly, deeper than anything else he could have said. I looked down at the concrete floor, at the reflection of the overhead light in a thin puddle near the door. "And you do not trust yourself?" Ethan breathed out slowly. "I trust my choices. I do not trust instincts that wake up in a storm and start calling themselves destiny." Before I could answer, his phone rang. The sound cut through the garage like a bell. Ryan's name lit up on the screen. Ethan looked at it, then at me, and for the first time all night, I saw a real conflict in his eyes. He answered on the fourth ring. "Hey." Ryan's voice was loud enough for me to hear in the quiet room. "Where are you two? The rain is getting bad, and Noah is not answering my texts." Ethan looked straight at me as he lied to his best friend. "We are at the old garage. Roads got slick, so I pulled over." "He is fine." My heart sank and lifted at the same time. Ryan laughed with relief. "Classic Noah. Tell him not to panic himself into a coma." Ethan did not smile. "He is doing better than you think." The line went quiet for a second. Then Ryan said, softer, "Good. Take care of him for me." Ethan closed his eyes. "I will." When the call ended, the garage felt different. Warmer, heavier, no longer only a shelter from the rain, but the first place where Ethan Calloway had chosen my secret. Over his own easy honesty. The silence after Ryan's call felt louder than the storm outside. Ethan set his phone face down on the workbench, but he did not step away from it, as if the black screen still held my brother's trust like a witness. I watched him from the couch, the bottle of water cold between my hands, my heartbeat finally slowing into something I could count. The strange warmth under my skin had settled, but it had not disappeared. It waited quietly now, like a light behind a closed door. "You lied to him," I said. Ethan looked at me. I left out the part that was not mine to explain. "That sounds like something adults say when they want lying to feel noble." His mouth moved with the smallest trace of pain. "Maybe it is." I looked down because seeing that pain on him made me feel worse than the lie itself. Ryan trusted Ethan more than almost anyone. He had trusted him with me tonight, trusted him enough to hand over his nervous little brother and joke about love like love could not ruin anything. "He asked you to take care of me," I whispered. "I am, but not the way he thinks." Ethan's eyes sharpened, not with anger, but with the force of a truth he had been holding back too long. "No, not the way he thinks." The garage seemed to shrink around those words. The old couch, the toolbox, the warm lights, the rain tapping against the roof. Everything became part of a room built for confession. I stood up slowly, testing my balance. Ethan's body tensed as if he wanted to move toward me. Then he stopped himself. That restraint made my chest ache. "If I was not Ryan's brother," I said, each word careful, "would you still stand that far away from me?" He did not answer quickly. That was how I knew the question had found the place it was meant to hurt. "Noah, would you?" His gaze dropped to the floor, then lifted back to mine. I have asked myself that for years. My breath caught. Years. Not tonight. Not because of rain or fear or some sudden instinct neither of us fully understood. Years. The word opened a hidden room in my memory, and suddenly I saw every Sunday dinner differently, every quick glance, every moment he left early when I entered the room, every careful kindness I had mistaken for pity. "You knew?" My voice barely sounded human. "You knew I had feelings for you?" I suspected. "And you avoided me." "Yes." The honesty hurt, but the softness in his voice kept it from breaking me. "Because of Ryan?" "Because of Ryan. Because you were younger. Because I thought distance was the only decent thing I could give you." I laughed once, but it came out thin and cracked. "That was your gift?" "Absence." Ethan flinched. "I am sorry. I wanted to be angry. Maybe part of me was. But underneath it was relief so sharp it almost felt like grief. All those years, I had not imagined the current between us. I had not built a whole impossible love out of nothing. And tonight? I asked, what changed tonight? Ethan looked toward the closed garage door, where rain slid down the small square windows in silver lines. "Tonight," The bond woke up before my self-control could pretend it was only guilt. My fingers curled around the hem of my hoodie. So it is real. Something is real, he said. But real does not mean simple. And it does not mean we let it decide everything for us. I stared at him, confused and aching. What if it already has? Ethan finally moved, but only one step closer, still leaving air between us. Then we slowed down until your heart catches up with your instincts. I will not let a bond, a storm, or my feelings choose for you. The words were not romantic in the easy way I had dreamed about when I was 15. They were better. They were a line drawn around my freedom, and somehow that made me trust him even more. Outside, thunder rolled softly over the trees, not dangerous, just distant. I wiped my eyes with my sleeve before the tears could fall. Ryan is going to hate us. Ethan's face tightened. Maybe. And you are still here. He looked at me then, fully, no distance hidden in his eyes. I have been here longer than you know. For a while, I could not speak, because the sentence had reached back through 4 years of memories and changed their shape. I remembered Ethan stepping outside during birthday parties whenever the room got too crowded. I remembered him, leaving his jacket on the back of my chair when a bonfire night turned cold, then pretending he had forgotten it there. I remembered the way he always asked Ryan how college applications were going, how my art classes were going, how I was doing, but never asked me directly when anyone else could hear. All those tiny distances had felt like rejection. Now they looked like someone standing at the edge of a fire, burning quietly because stepping closer would have been wrong. I thought I made it all up, I said. My voice shook, but I did not hide it this time. I thought I was just embarrassing myself in my own head. Ethan's face changed, the control slipping just enough for regret to show through. You were never embarrassing. You made me feel invisible. The words came out before I could soften them. He looked down, accepting the hit without defending himself. I know. That made the tears come faster, not because he argued, but because he did not. I pressed my sleeve under my eyes and tried to laugh, but it broke in the middle. I spent years trying to become someone you would notice. Ethan took one careful breath. Noah, I noticed too much. That was the problem. The garage lights hummed above us. Rain slid down the windows. Somewhere in the small refrigerator, the motor clicked on with an ordinary little buzz, as if the world had not just tilted beneath my feet. I looked at him across the space he refused to close. Then tell me the truth now. His eyes lifted to mine. The whole truth. The part you keep swallowing. For the first time, he looked afraid. Not of me. Not of the bond. Of what honesty might cost. The night of Ryan's graduation party, when I found you in that hallway, I told myself I stepped in because you looked scared. That was true, but it was not all of it. When you looked at me like I was safe, something in me answered before I understood it. I went home that night and stayed awake until morning because I knew I had crossed a line inside myself, even if I had not crossed one in the world. My heart hurt with every word. So you disappeared. I tried to become only Ryan's friend again. Did it work? Ethan gave the smallest, saddest smile. No. The answer settled between us, simple and devastating. I wanted to run to him. I wanted to stay exactly where I was. I wanted to be 15 again and 19 forever and older than both of us. Wise enough to know how love could be right and still hurt everyone around it. What happens now? I asked. Ethan looked at the garage door, then at his phone, then back at me. Now I take you home before Ryan worries more. Tomorrow, when the rain is gone and your head is clear, we talk again. No pressure. No hiding from what happened. No pretending the bond means nothing. But no letting it make choices you have not made with your own voice. I wiped my face, breathing through the ache in my chest. And if my choice is you? His expression softened so completely it nearly undid me. Then you say it when you are steady enough to know it is yours. Outside, the storm began to ease, the hard rain becoming a whisper against the roof. Ethan picked up his keys from the workbench, but before he reached the door, I spoke his name. He stopped immediately. I am scared, I said. He turned back. I know. Not of you. His eyes held mine. I know that too. I stood there in his old garage, wrapped in the scent of cedarwood, rain, and a future I could no longer avoid. And for the first time all night, I understood that driving was not the lesson. Letting go of the brake was. By the time Ethan drove me home, the rain had softened into a mist that turned every streetlight into a blurred halo. I sat in the passenger seat with both hands folded in my lap, watching familiar houses pass by, as if I had left as one person and was returning as someone no one would recognize. Ethan kept the radio off. He drove with the same calm precision he brought to everything. One hand on the wheel, eyes on the road, never once reaching for me, never once making the silence feel empty. It was full of things we had not said. When our house came into view, my stomach tightened so sharply I almost asked him to keep driving. The porch light was on. Ryan was waiting under it in sweatpants and an old Red Sox hoodie, arms crossed against the damp night air. He looked relieved at first, and that relief hurt more than suspicion would have. Ethan parked at the curb instead of the driveway. "Let me talk first," he said quietly. I shook my head. "No, he is my brother." Ethan looked at me then, and the restraint in his face softened into something like pride. "Okay." I opened the door before I could lose courage. The cold air rushed in, carrying away the last warmth of the car, but not Ethan's scent from my hoodie, my skin, the invisible space around me. Ryan stepped off the porch as we walked up the path. "There you are." I was about to send a search party. He tried to smile, but it faded when he saw my face. "Noah." I stopped at the bottom step. Ethan stopped beside me, close enough to steady me if I needed it, far enough to prove he was still letting me stand on my own. "I am fine," I said, and for once it was almost true. Ryan's eyes moved from me to Ethan, then back again. Something changed in his expression. His shoulders went still. I saw the exact second he noticed the scent in the air, cedarwood and rain threaded through vanilla and snow, not blended completely, but close enough to tell a story neither of us had spoken aloud. "Why do you smell like him?" Ryan asked. The question was quiet, but it landed harder than shouting. My fingers curled around my sleeves. I looked at Ethan, but he did not answer for me. He only stood there, carrying the weight of his own choices without trying to hide them. So I lifted my wrist to push damp hair from my eyes, and Ryan's gaze dropped. A faint silver mark shimmered just below my pulse, delicate as moonlight under the porch lamp. I had not seen it before. Ethan inhaled sharply beside me, the first break in his control all night. Ryan stared at the mark, then at his best friend, and the relief vanished from his face as if someone had switched off the light behind it. "Tell me that is not what I think it is," he said. My heart pounded, but I did not step back. "Ryan, I need you to listen." He gave a short, wounded laugh. "I trusted you with him," he said to Ethan. Ethan's voice was low. "I know. That is all you have to say?" "No, but it is where the truth starts." The mist drifted between us, cold and shining. Across the street, a porch swing creaked in the wind. Everything was ordinary and impossible at the same time. Ryan looked at me again, and beneath the anger I saw fear, the old protective fear that had followed me since childhood. "Did he pressure you?" "No," I said immediately. He did the opposite. He kept giving me choices, even when I was too scared to ask for them. Ryan's jaw worked like he was trying to hold back 1,000 words. Ethan lowered his eyes, not in shame exactly, but in respect. "I should have told you there was a chance my feelings were not as simple as friendship with your family. I failed there." Ryan swallowed hard. "A chance?" Ethan looked at me once, then back at him. "No, more than a chance." The silver mark on my wrist warmed, not painfully, just enough to remind me that some roads appear before we are ready to drive them. I stepped between them, not as a shield, but as myself. "This started tonight," I said, "but it did not come from nowhere. And I do not know what happens next. I only know I do not want my life decided by fear, or by a bond, or by everyone trying to protect me from my own heart." Ryan's eyes filled with hurt he would never admit to. Ethan stood silent beside me. The night held its breath. Then Ryan opened the front door and said, "Inside. Both of you." It was not forgiveness. It was not acceptance. But it was not the end. As I climbed the porch steps, I looked back once at Ethan, and for the first time, he did not look away.